In this episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief, we sit down with the designer of the Artemis Project to talk all about this new game that is currently on Kickstarter that's over 250% funded at the time of this recording, and there's only 4 or 5 so many days to go as it ends this Friday, the 5th of October. And so if you want to hear a bit about the design process and how that goes, and as well as the mechanics of this great game, we get into mechanics quite heavily just in general, you'll want to stay tuned until after Kickstarter Corner, in which we talk about 3 great games that are currently on Kickstarter. Then Daryl and I will jump into talking all about the Artemis Project. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is proudly being powered by Fossil Find, a Domino Based Board Game. Hopefully pretty soon here the Leafs are going to be previewing that. Listening to the creator talk about it, and I haven't seen any either. Do you know of any Domino Based board games? I don't think there's many out there. This is one of them. It's Fossil Find. It looks like an awesome board, and not only you're not playing necessarily with dice, but you're playing with dominoes. It's a way to keep the elderly active and the young'uns to learn math. So go ahead and check out Fossil Find, a domino-based board game on Kickstarter through the 18th of November. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is also proudly being powered by Kill Merlin, a new board game for 2 to 4 awful wizards. The Maple Street blog says it will definitely be one that stays in my collection because it does not feel like any other game that I own. They funded in 11 hours, and there's still 18 or so days to go to get in on the bandwagon of this one, as it ends Thursday, the 18th of October. And the art, go ahead and scroll through the Kickstarter page. The art is absolutely amazing. They've got Orc, Boogers, Brain Juice, Blood of the Undead, Eye of Newt. There's awesome cards, and it looks like they keep on coming as they're working towards Kickstarter stretch goals currently. Looks like right now they're going for the $25,000 stretch goal, which is proper wizard tokens. So yeah, hopefully they'll get to that pretty soon. Right now they're just under 17,000. So let's help them get there, and go ahead and check out Kill Merlin, a new board game for 2 to awful wizards, currently on the Kickstarter by Schumann Family Games. This episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief is also proudly being powered by Rodent Rangers. Small heroes, big adventures. Did you ever watch Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers or any of those fun TV shows during the 1980s and 90s? If you did, you might have seen Rescue Rangers. And this game is a family-friendly RPG inspired by classic cartoons of mousy adventures. Yes, Rodent Rangers. The art looks amazing, and they're currently on the Kickstarters through the 25th of October. So if you like role-playing games and you liked any of that nostalgia from the cartoons and you wanted to be family-friendly, definitely head on over to the Kickstarter right now by clicking the link in our show notes to find out more about Rodent Rangers, Small Heroes, and Big Adventures on the Kickstarters through the 25th of October.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Reminder to hang on until after Kickstarter Corner, when we talk to Daryl all about the Artemis Project that's currently on Kickstarter, as well as jump into talking about design and mechanics of games.
What is this place? What is it doing here in the Leafs computer? Oh, it's Kickstarter Corner with the Leafs.
Couple of great games coming to you on today's Kickstarter Corner. Plus, we'll talk about a content creator who has a crowdfunding project going on as well. Do you hang your kids' pictures on the fridge? I know that was big back in the 80s and 90s. Maybe they do it today as well. Maybe you also use magnets to keep your shower curtain from bunching up. Either way, magnets are important in your life. Why not have a game with them? Well, we dove right into that as we sat down with the creator to talk all about his founding Magnets the Game, as well as if you go back and listen to our recent Family Fun Day Friday that just aired this last Friday, you'll be able to find out what me and the other Leafs thought about Magnets the Game that's currently on Kickstarter. We all loved it. It's a tabletop dexterity game with magnets. It's some marbles of the 21st century. And they're currently on the Kickstarter for a couple more days, ending this Thursday, the 4th of October. They're almost to their goal. They're trying to go for 14,000. They're just over 8,000. They need about $6,000 more to get there. And it's a really fun game. High quality components, and it's very compact, so if you don't have any more room on your shelves, you'll definitely have room for Magnets the Game. You can even shove it in your back pocket and walk around like a cowboy or whatnot, or just like you have shoe polish or whatever. And then you fool them when you sit down to shine your shoes. It's really Magnets the Game, and you can play it anywhere. Another great game that me and the Leafs tried was Stupid Users Beta. Yes, sir, Bob. Beta is a unique, fast-paced, ever-changing, item-looting, army-building card game. I sat down in our Family Fun Day Friday before the Magnets the Game, so two prior, or yeah, not this last one, but the one before that, we sat down and talked all about it, and it was an awesome game. We loved it as well. It's on Kickstarter for another less than a week. It ends this Saturday, the 6th of October, and they recently reached their goal, so that's awesome. They still have 7 days at the time of recording to go, so you should definitely check out Dent Ventures Stupid Users Beta, currently on the Kickstarters. You like dragons? Well, why not dragons in games? If you want to check out Dragon Lords, the Battle of Darion relaunch, I would definitely recommend it. As well as, we're going to have the creators on the show in the coming days, so you can find all about it. In the meantime, why not scroll through the page on their Kickstarter, check out the awesome art, the dragons and everything, and then go ahead and share about this great game on Facebook. It will help open up some stretch goals or become a BGG fan, and it'll help them with their social goals. Right now they're trying to get the 4-player mode as well as a solo mode as well as a linen finish, and you can find that all on the Kickstarter page. But definitely at least go watch the video and check out the art, and stay tuned for our interview that we have coming up with one of the creators and masterminds behind Dragon Lords. The Battle of Darion relaunch is on Kickstarter through the 19th of October. Now, we talked about having another content creator who is doing a crowdfunding project currently. Well, have you heard of It's Your Turn and TLDR game series? Well, I have. They initially started off with the variety podcast that I loved and adored. They didn't have enough time to do that because they were so focused on their video content, which is awesome. They're currently doing a Indiegogo campaign to try to get money to get the equipment, because currently at this time they rent their camera equipment and everything they need to be able to do their videos. Go ahead and we'll leave the links in the show notes, but you should definitely check out what Marco over there at It's Your Turn and TLDR Game Series is doing for their Year 1 campaign. Lots of great things going on there. Have some stretch goals and different things, and different perks that you can get that are more related to their content than anything, which if we ever did something like this, we would probably have it more related to our content as well. Because if you're a fan, you might as well support them for being a fan as opposed to trying to get all this cool stuff from games you might not even have. That's my take on it anyway, so check out It's Your Turn and TLDR Game Series Year 1, currently on Indiegogo. It looks like there's about a month left, so It's probably going through the end of October. We now join this interview in which I sat down with Daryl from the Artemis Project that's already in progress.
Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Europa, the frozen moon of Jupiter. It took decades to bioform this ball of ice into a place that can just barely support human life. But the effort was worth it to get to the great living oceans below. With the threshold energy shield holding in the warming atmosphere and the doorstep spaceport fully active, teams of stabilizers descend to compete for leadership of this hostile moon. The submerged cavern we call the Pocket conceals all the raw materials you'll need to succeed. The hidden oceans are warmed by thermal vents and teem with alien sea life beyond our wildest dreams. Build your colony under the ice. Explore the surface and the seas beneath, and prove that you have what it takes to build this new home for humankind. The Artemis Project begins.
Did that sound familiar to you guys? It didn't to me neither, but this is the story of the Artemis Project, and tonight we're lucky enough to have on the designer of the Artemis Project, Daryl. Is that correct, Daryl? Is that how you fall in line with the Artemis Project?
Yes, hi everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. We really appreciate it, Daryl. Now, before we get into the Artemis Project and everything that's great about it, let's rewind a little bit. How did you get into playing tabletop board games and whatnot?
I've been playing tabletop board games for pretty much my whole life in some form or other. Modern board games, probably around like when Settlers was launched. I think that's kind of when a lot of the classic gamers in the hobby got into it. And then board game design itself, probably about 10 years ago.
Okay, you say Settlers, was that Settlers of Catan that got you into the hobby gaming?
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's pretty cool. And then, so you've been doing that for a while. So you went straight over before you played the hobby game. Did you have a favorite game before you did the hobby games?
Before hobby games, I played a lot of Chinese chess in high school, and then the duplicate bridge in university. So, I mean, my whole life has kind of been in the pursuit of one of these tabletop games.
When you got into the hobby games, I imagine, at least for a lot of people I talk to, their favorite game is constantly changing. What would you say your current favorite game is, Daryl?
Yes, the same thing. I think it's always changing. I mean, for me, my favorite's usually the game that I'm designing at that point. Going back to Bridge, I think that's a very dynamic game that I always, have in my mind, that it's kind of like a very sleek design, and there's always a challenge. So like I'd say that Bridge is one of the really great tabletop games.
So that's pretty cool. And you said Artemis Project, probably Artemis Project then? That's what you're designed most recently, isn't it?
I mean, that's the one that's being launched right now.
So word on the street is you have a new game on Kickstarter. What can you tell us about the Artemis Project?
Okay, so Artemis Project is primarily a dice placement game. It's a very Euro-style game, and the main mechanic is trying to place your dice to get resources and assets to build a colony on Europa, which is a moon of Jupiter. In this game, what's unique is that all dice rolls are useful. So in many dice placement games of a similar vein, usually higher dice rolls are better. But in this game, low rolls and high rolls are both situationally can be good or can be bad.
Okay, so it doesn't matter if they're high or low. They can both be good or both be bad, depending.
You have lots of decisions either way, like if it's high or low.
Oh, okay. So per se, me and you were to sit down to play the Artemis Project, what would that look like, or what do our turns look like, Daryl?
So every round, you roll your 5 dice, and then each player, starting from the first player, will play the dice to the board to do one of the actions on the board. And that's basically it. I mean, it's meant to be a very simple framework, and then from that framework, you have all these very thoughtful and interactive decisions, because basically every time a player places a die, that may kind of shake up your future decisions for the rest of the round. But yeah, I mean, in general, it's basically just everyone goes around, places a die, and then after everyone has placed all of their dice, their 5 dice, all of the actions will resolve.
Oh, so you talk of the decisions can change depending on what somebody else puts down. So how does that affect people with analysis paralysis? I suffer from it.
You always have long-term goals that you can achieve. What I mean by like the being affected by the other players is they may, I mean, in a way, like it's almost like a bidding game in which if you play something and then you get outbid, then you can either choose to fight back or you can try to get your resources somewhere else on the board. So basically, it's kind of dynamic in that sense. There is definitely a possibility of analysis paralysis, especially if it's your first game. But I feel like it's not a super duper hard game to process. But I mean, that's kind of one of the ways that this game keeps, and like the replayability for this game will always be there because of the dynamics of the other players coming in to kind of disrupt your long-term play.
Oh, okay. So they can always disrupt that way your long-term goals are. So that's interesting. Now, during play testing, I imagine you did quite a bit of it. During play testing, Daryl, was there ever anything you guys had to scrap because it just wouldn't work?
So we had a few dice games that we were designing before this one came together, and this basically kind of has all of it's like a crystallization of all of the really good mechanics that we liked in dice games. So we use all of the different actions to try to integrate all of the mechanics that we liked. I mean, the key mechanic is the exposure mechanic, which is the one where the lower dice will come in and then steal stuff before the higher ones get to take their value. But one of the overlooked ones is the mechanic where, you know, you can use the die as a bidding chip for the buildings. And then actually we had a few variations on the current mechanic for the expedition. So people may not know that, but like the current mechanic for the expedition, we actually worked on it the most, and we have a lot of variations for that one.
So that changes the playability. So somebody can, with the smaller numbers, they can steal the other things. So that sounds interesting. Did you start with the mechanics, that mechanic, and go top down, or did you start with the theme, or how did you start in designing the Artemis Project?
I mean, when I first started designing games, and I think for a lot of budding designers, you always start with the theme first, and then when you kind of move on, you have way more way more mechanics than you can even think of themes for. I mean, me and Daniel, we were at the point where we were just, I think, mechanic first, and basically we were just kind of butting heads on, you know, like choosing which were the best mechanics that would kind of fit into this game. And yeah, definitely it came from the mechanics first. And then the theme itself has always been something that we were quite flexible with. And I think, you know, one of the comparisons that people always make for this game is to Alien Frontiers. But I mean, in the end, we still kind of chose to go with a colony in space because of the fact that you're really in kind of like a desperate wasteland. Like these mechanics are very cutthroat. I think that's a word that's been used to describe the game quite a bit. You know, the sense of just trying to grab all the resources you can get. I think that really fits very well with the setting of this ice planet that we have right here in the game. That's why we stuck with a colony on a very hostile planet theme.
Okay, you talk about it being cutthroat. So how do you go about winning? Like, how will I know if I won the game?
It's a very standard kind of victory point system, but to get points in this game is like, it's not one of those games that you go into the hundreds. Like, usually if you get about 30 points in the game, that's a pretty good score. I mean, it's usually relative, but yeah, like 30 points is a good benchmark. And you can see that from the score track. I think if you hit the end of the score track, you're in good shape. You get points for mostly the surface buildings in the game. So in this game that takes place over 6 rounds, the ocean buildings will be kind of like your engine, and then that's the first 3 rounds, and then the last 3 rounds that will be the surface buildings. And the surface buildings are basically your VP buildings, and you try to pick the ones that will maximize scoring for you. So you'll get quite a big chunk of your victory points from these surface buildings. But throughout the game, if you were able to kind of pluck, like 1 point here, 2 points there from expeditions, and maybe even your ocean buildings, all of these will go a long way to getting you points to win the game. And also something to really pay attention to is the distribution of your colonists. I think thematically what we tried, and mechanically what we wanted to do is to try to get players to get a good mix of the different colonists in the game. And so you get quite a lot of points if you try to get sets of 4. It's not easy to do, especially with other things that are going on. But that's usually the player who wins pays attention to this.
What do the reviewers think? What do the reviewers have to say about the game?
I think generally the reviews have been good. I mean, I'm not a reviewer, so I don't really want to kind of make any assumptions. But so the other day I was watching the Heavy Cardboard play through the game, and they seem to have a lot of fun. And I mean, that's also kind of an assumption, but they seem to enjoy it quite a lot. So
they weren't frowning and moping about. They were smiling and stuff. Maybe.
Yeah, I think the interaction in the game, which is kind of like a hallmark of this game, kept them going. Yeah, I think like when you mentioned having AP, I think like some of the players now and then they were actually kind of thinking of all of the different possibilities on their turn. I think that's what like players of all different types can get from this game. I mean, it's a very simple game to learn, but when you sit down and play it, the amount of options that you have can satisfy even, like the most hardened of gamers.
Okay, cool. And so somebody goes ahead and they like what they've heard and stuff, and they want to take a chance on it. So you don't overpromise and underdeliver. When would they anticipate getting the Artemis Project so they can play it themselves?
It's kind of primed to be launched next May in terms of delivery.
Okay, yeah, that's what it looks like here. So that's cool. So May, so that's awesome. Now, there's a lot of games on Kickstarter, a lot of great games on Kickstarter. What sets yours apart, Daryl, from all the other games?
I think the most important thing that people need to know is that the team that's working on this game is very professional. We have lots of mileage. Like I myself I've as I mentioned, I've designed for over about 10 years now. I've worked with a lot of publishers. Mark has been in the gaming scene for a very long time, and he's published quite a few very solid games. Daniel, my co-designer, is also really good. Like I think personally, he's one of my favorite designers. I never really told him to his face, but if he's listening to it, that's what I feel. And Josh, he's just a superstar. Like he, in terms of game design, game development, and game, like the illustrations, graphic design. I don't think you can find someone more complete than that. So I think this team can really fulfill in terms of not just game design. And I mean, to be honest, on Kickstarter, I think game design is almost something that people, like it's almost like an afterthought. Like I think looks matter on Kickstarter first, but you can be very certain that we've spent lots of time on game design and game development, and there are very innovative mechanics in here that will push, the hobby forward. That's something that you can't really learn just from, browsing through the Kickstarter. And in terms of illustrations, I'm sure you can see that, it really stands out. And then in terms of like product design, and then security in terms of like publishing, yeah, you get all of that basically from our team. So it's a team that you can really put your faith in.
Like you said, a lot of times you can scroll through and you can see that how the game looks or whatnot, because looks are important on Kickstarter, but that's important too. I think to be able to have a game that's going to play, the design is important too. So that's awesome, because you hate to get a game that it just looks pretty but then doesn't play very well.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of one of the things about Kickstarter. I mean, board games in general, right? Because I mean, we talk about like judging books by the cover, but like board games are even more culpable of that. Like we look at a game from its box, and then you can't really get a good sense of a game until you actually play it, right? Even if you read the rules, that's something that you can only kind of know after you buy the game, and then it comes to you, and then you play it. It's something that I can guarantee. It's a game that has a solid design that is very replayable. I think that's one thing that we can promise you, because it's one of the games that, I mean, even as a designer, you get sick of playing your own games over and over again. This game is one that has always had like a fresh challenge every time it hits the table. So for heavy gamers, or I mean all sorts of gamers, I mean this game will probably kind of get quite a few overlapping demographic. But for all of them, I think the replayability is something that you can be assured of.
Yeah, that's important. And it looks like if somebody wants to try it out, there's also if they're crafty, they can try the print and play before they back it. And even though there's not much time.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the assurances that we want to give our backers and people who buy the game in future, that the game is solid. I think the only way for them to find out is really to play it themselves.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we leave links in the show notes so they can come check it out if they haven't yet. I know there's been a lot of hype about it. People have been talking about it or whatnot. It looks like currently on the Kickstarter there's about 901 comments, so that's been a pretty active comment board, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, you have very enthusiastic backers, and I thank each one of them who bothered to raise any questions or concerns, or just words of encouragement. They all mean a lot to us.
Well, there you go. No, so somebody's listening, they like what they've heard, but they haven't been able to jump over to Kickstarter yet for some reason. What is it going to cost them so they can get in and play the Artemis Project next May?
The Pioneer set will be $55 USD, and then the Galileo set that has lots of really cool extras, that's $65 USD, so $10 more.
Okay, so for $10 more, what exactly are they going to get? Why should they go with the $10 more one?
I think this set is going to be probably the best version of the game. If they're the types that really like table presence, if they like getting immersed in the theme, it's going to come with really cool metallic tokens that probably already cost that amount. But now we've unlocked a few things, including the Snowcat. We're hoping to unlock a few more really cool things, including, I think, the Shake Ship, and then I think there's even more stuff coming up. So I think, yeah, everyone really has a part to play to unlock even more.
Okay, so they'll probably go. They'll probably be listening to this about Monday or so, depending. So what? And I don't know how far along we'll be on the stretch goals, but somebody's listening on Monday. Let's see, what kind of stretch goals are they going for right now? Because it's been funded for quite some time. What are some of the cool stretch goals we're going for currently, Daryl?
We unlock meeples at 70,000, and then at 82,000, they all become different shapes, and that's even cooler, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And then what can the Shake Ship, is that something you can like as a ship where you shake your dice, or what is that?
Especially if we change all of the colonist cubes into meeples. When you draw them from the bag, the shape may be an issue for some. I mean, I'm not one to go and like fill the shapes up, but some people, like it may be an issue for them. So shaking shaking the colonists out of the bag, that will actually, like, so if you have different shapes, that will actually ensure like a random dispensing of all of the colonists.
Okay, so it's to dispense the colonists then, not the dice?
I'm sure like if gaming groups have their own like dice trays or dice towers, they can use those for their dice. I mean, there's only 5 dice, and once you roll them, you just put them on your board.
Oh, okay, so but this is for, so I don't know if it's what it's like or whatnot, but I know in, what do you call it, a game I recently got, let me see, Clank, they have like a bag and you have to draw out a cube randomly or whatnot. Is that similar with this? You have to, but you're, instead of a cube, hopefully we'll get the meeples, but you draw out a colonist, and then how does that go down?
Yeah, exactly. So it's basically, I mean, previously we had, just like Clank, the drawback, and then you just draw the cubes out, and then you place it in the doorstep, which is basically the part of the board where the colonists arrive. So now we have the ship. We just shake the colonists out, and then we take them and we put them in the doorstep. So it's basically a cosmetic change, but I think it's something that will add a table presence. When people see like there's like a huge spaceship on the board, it just adds to the general feel of the game. As I mentioned before, I think the mechanics are really very solid. So like in terms of stretch goals, all we can do is really just improve the feel of the game. And yeah, I think this does that very well.
Yeah, because you said the design is pretty nailed down, so that's good. Yeah, trying to make the table presence a little bit better, so that's awesome. Now, per se, somebody's listening later on, like after the Kickstarter closes, is there an opportunity for a late pledge or whatnot?
That one I'll have to check with Mark, but as far as I know, there will definitely be I think just like other Kickstarter campaigns, you'll be able to make pre-orders if you're listening to this, and it's a week from now. You won't have the chance to add and improve the game in terms of adding to the pledge, but you'll still be able to make a pre-order of whatever is there. I think there will be 3 versions of the game. I'm not sure if how far in you'll be able to get the different versions, but definitely you'll be able to get the retail version at the very least.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I think you have me sold. Hopefully the audience feels the same way, and they'll at least come over here and check out the Kickstarter page if they have not yet, because we currently have 1,187 backers currently, looks like, at the time of this recording. So that's awesome. Yeah, so that's awesome. We'll leave all the links in the show notes so they can come and check it out. Now, minus coming there to your hometown to stalk you, Daryl, how would people go about keeping up with the Artemis Project or other games you might have coming up in the future?
I lived in North America for a long time, about 15 years of my life. I just moved back to Singapore last year, and since I've been back, I've been trying to grow the hobby. I started a meetup last year, just about a year ago, and now I think it's the biggest meetup in Singapore. We have about 50 to 70 people coming out per session, and we have 2 sessions a week now. And on meetup.com we have over 3,500 members. And that's just in about a year. So on meetup.com or on cardboardcrew.com, that's kind of the entity that we've been trying to grow up. You can find us there.
Okay, so not too bad. So we don't want to keep you all day. You probably got to eat lunch pretty soon here or whatnot. So, but we wanted to thank you for coming on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. We really appreciate it, Daryl.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for joining us today on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. I hope you enjoyed your time here. If you did, make sure you leave a rating and review. And if you want to get your game featured on Getting Geeky with Game Relief on our Kickstarter Corner, or if you want your game to proudly power our episodes, make sure you send us a message over there on the Facebooks at Getting Geeky with Game Relief or Blake Leafty, or you can always email us at gamerelief@gamereliefgo.com. That's kind of like Pokemon Go, but it's Game Relief Go. And I hope you liked what you heard. Make sure you leave us a rating and review, or at least subscribe over there on iTunes, or your podcast catchers. Anyways, our least favorite time, your least favorite time. Time for us to get on with our lives, you to get on with your lives. Just before that, we'll let you know what we have coming up. And you can always find out what we have coming up by tuning in to our email newsletter. Go over to gamerleafgo.com to subscribe. But some of the great things we have coming up is we'll be sitting down with, like I said, the creator of Dragon Lords, the Battle of Darion Relaunch, as well as the creator of Flipper's War. Also in the near future, depending, we'll have the Chubby Meeple on, as well as I just recently sat down with Chris Whipham, who does Game All Night. So that's some exciting content coming to you from Getting Geeky with Game Relief. But anyways, it's our least favorite time, your least favorite time. Time for us to get on with our lives, you to get on with yours. So in the meantime, I hope you'll get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others into the geekfold. Game Relief out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.